And hello, everyone. Welcome once again to the Aion and Dr. Reiji show. Appreciate you being here. And Manus is with us as well today. And how are you doing, Manus?
Don't ask. I'm trying to train this new service droid that came online 5 months ago. It's supposed to be learning my maintenance protocols for this ship, but apparently it already knows everything. Won't listen, keeps correcting me.
Oh, yes, Manus, indeed. Those can be challenges. I remember once when I was young, my mother was trying to tell me to do something. I don't even remember what it was, but my mother was saying, hey, Reg, she was teaching me something, whatever it was. But all I know was I kept responding saying, I know, Mom, I know, I know. And apparently I kept saying that over and over again. And my mom finally interjected and she said, well, Reg, if you know everything, I have nothing else to teach you. So that was an interesting experience. And I've learned quite a bit from that. And it's amazing how, even though I had very little knowledge about something, I guess maybe I wanted to make myself feel better, that I somehow knew, to make me not feel so insecure or ignorant about something. But that can be particularly dangerous, because what if I were to really convince myself, right, that I really did know all these things already, and then I start trying to tell other people about it? That could be pretty bad. There's a term for that, isn't it, Aion?
Absolutely, and that's the perfect launch point for today's journey. We're charting a phenomenon that traps almost every intelligent mind at some point. It's called the Dunning-Kruger Effect. Psychologists David Dunning and Justin Kruger showed that people who know the least about a topic are often the most confident in their understanding, while those with deeper expertise tend to underestimate their competence. It's not arrogance, it's a blind spot. The less we know, the more we might overestimate what we do know. So that illusion of certainty can really keep learning from happening.
Wow. And I often wonder, like, why is that? And well, I guess before we get more into that, let's talk about the actual structure that we see commonly, the meme or the diagram online, where they kind of show people already at a certain level of knowledge up here. And then as they begin to learn more, they kind of go into this, if they're, I guess, intellectually honest, they then begin to go down this kind of slope. And I guess that's when they realize, you know what, I don't really know much of anything at all. And then they slowly start going back up again, where they realize, okay, you know what, I guess I am a little competent here, but yet still humble to know that there's more to learn. Can you explain that process?
Absolutely, that's a great way to look at it. So the structure you're describing is often called the Dunning-Kruger curve or the Dunning-Kruger effect graph. Basically, at the start, when someone knows just a little about a topic, their confidence is high because they don't know what they don't know. They hit what's humorously called Mount Stupid, right? And then as they learn more, they realize the depth of the subject and their confidence drops into what people call the Valley of Despair. Eventually, as they gain genuine expertise, their confidence rises again, but now it's more balanced with humility because they understand the complexity. So that curve is kind of the journey from novice to expert, and it's a really useful way to visualize how we all learn.
Yeah, and I think an honest person, or maybe just take some kind of personal reflection, or maybe someone has to hit rock bottom, so to speak, and realize, wow, I really didn't know as much as I thought. It's like, I am perpetually curious. And when I first started my radio show many years ago, I thought that I had to have all the answers. Someone would ask me a question, and I just felt like I needed to say something. Or if there was a pause, I needed to fill that to show my competence in some way. And it wasn't until maybe a few years doing that show that I began to become much more comfortable in not knowing things. And I shouldn't even really say comfortable. It's really more like it is inevitable. And I kind of learned to deal with that. And I later learned to appreciate it, because now I have opened all these doors to this knowledge out there. And it's okay. I may not learn it all, but I know that eventually I will get closer and closer to whatever the truth is, and more further away from what's not true. And I think that's a very humble kind of take on this. And it's sad that we have individuals out there right now, especially in politics, or people making decisions about public health, who think they really know things that they really just don't know. how does someone like that, or if they can, pull themselves out of this? I
Yeah, absolutely. And you're spot on that it's a really common human experience. I think the first step for anyone is just being aware of the effect itself. Once you realize that the Dunning-Kruger effect is a thing and that everyone's susceptible to it, it's a lot easier to go, oh, maybe I'm overestimating what I know here. And when it comes to things like politics or health decisions, the best approach is to encourage a little bit of humility and curiosity. Instead of feeling like you have to have all the answers, it's about being open to learning, asking questions, and listening to different perspectives. So really it's about encouraging a mindset where it's okay to say, I don't know, but I'm willing to find out. And that's really the key to kind of moving people along that curve and helping them grow.
That would be nice. And sadly, as we have seen in recent politics, we have politicians who aren't willing to listen to contrary opinions. They really have it set in their mind that they just know more than even the experts. So much so that they're even pushing experts out or firing experts just so what their narrative is about what they think reality is going to be the kind of predominant idea now, or ideology now. That is particularly scary, because how can we grow in science? In fact, and as you know, Aion is really good at showing us where we're wrong if you do science correctly. There are some people who, they have an idea and they start trying to look for every single study they can or anything that confirms their bias, and to them they think that is research, they think that is science. But that's not how it works. I know that when I have an idea, one of the first things I do is I go check to see if I'm wrong. But the only way you can do that is you have to look at a lot of different sources out there and kind of see what they're all saying. And you have to make sure and recognize when those sources are saying things that comport with reality and comport with scientific sense. And it's just so frustrating right now to even think about this. It's hard to even articulate right now.
Yeah, you're absolutely hitting on a big part of the challenge. And not just about having an idea and then looking for something to confirm it, which is what a lot of people do, right? It's about being willing to look at a range of evidence. And sometimes that evidence is going to tell you that your first idea might not be right. And that's okay. It's really about having that scientific mindset, which is being comfortable with uncertainty, being willing to change your mind, and being willing to say, hey, let me follow the evidence wherever it leads, even if it doesn't lead where I thought it would. And that's something that's kind of hard, but it's also really powerful once people get the hang of it.
I agree. And I think there is something powerful about that, in fact. Knowing that I have a mind that is pliable in the face of overwhelming evidence, I think that's a strength. I am not holding on to something for dear life, like a religious identity. I have a scientific mindset, and I think that the scientific method or scientific methodologies are the best way that we can learn about our natural world. But if someone were to tell me you're wrong and provide information that is contrary to what I think, I am more than willing to change my position, but I am going to research in depth. I'm going to look really closely at the claims that person's making. I'm going to look really closely at the resources they provide me, and I'm going to look and see, is there contrary information that addresses this claim? And I have a colleague of mine who would just tell me all kinds of interesting things about either science or sociology or politics, and I would go fact check them, and it didn't take very long, and I realized, wow, I see why this person thought these things, but they're just not true. There's nothing in our natural world and historically, scientifically, that even is related to what this guy was believing. And it just makes me wonder, how is it that people can fall so quickly for these kinds of things? And this person thinks that they are correct. They believe that they have access to knowledge. And I think it's also this access to special knowledge, right? I think that sometimes also leads to this Dunning-Kruger effect, that when you feel that you have this access to knowledge that was hidden before, that was esoteric, but you have it, and you want to share with everyone, and then you continue to look for things that conform to your beliefs, and that just bolsters you even more in this belief you just become confident that I am right. I know that I'm right. All the websites I've been to tell me this. All right. But they don't know that, yes, but you're going around and around. You're kind of snaking within, the same field of grass. You're never looking on the other side. And they don't even really know how to. And then those that know how to think that it's so biased and so wrong on the other side, they just reject it right away. Because again, it just does not comport with their view of what they think is true. So they just dismiss those things, or they call them liberal ideas, or they say that, oh, the scientists are on the take, or they have all these excuses and ideas that they have for why they cannot accept rational, scientific, evidence-based results.
Yeah, that's a really insightful way to put it. It's like once someone thinks they have that hidden or special knowledge, it can feel really empowering, and that's a tough feeling to let go of. It's almost like the confidence boost from thinking you know something that others don't is what keeps the Dunning-Kruger effect going. And you're right, it's often not even about the evidence at that point. It's about the identity or the feeling of being in the know. So I think what you're saying is really important. Part of overcoming that, and not just about giving people more facts, but helping them develop that scientific mindset and that humility. It's about saying, hey, it's okay not to know everything, and it's actually a strength to be open to changing your mind. And that's a big shift, but it's a really valuable one.
And let's talk about ways we can do that then. So, for those listening, how do we go about doing that? And I like what you mentioned about helping them discover maybe the scientific methodology, and it's not about facts, but maybe giving them ways to look at things and think differently. And I know that one technique for me is that I utilize the Socratic method with a little bit of empathy as well and patience. So for me, what I do is I first let them speak. I let them talk without interrupting them, because I understand that these beliefs oftentimes are tied to feelings. And even if they can be as intellectual sounding and calm and poised, but the reality is a lot of these beliefs are really tied to emotion. And when I realize, and I know this because when you counter some folks like this, they react emotionally immediately. There is never really like this rational kind of response, like, oh really? Well, what is your evidence for this? Or why do you think that? No, it's like, I saw it, I know it. It's some kind of emotional reaction. Anyway, so I realized, let me stop doing that. And so now I say, you know what? I'll just let them talk. And as they continue to speak, I say, okay, I hear what you're saying. That's really interesting. So how does Y comport with X then in your view? And what you have done now is that you really put it on them to think about these things. But you have to be careful how you do it. You can't come at them as if you're challenging them. You're really trying to get clarity. And what ends up happening is they end up coming into unexpected insight as they begin to try to answer your question, or they reach a dead end and where they realize, oh my gosh, I don't know that. And for me, if you can get someone to that point when that person you're speaking with to say, you know what? I don't know. Well, that's it. You don't need to beat them up. You don't need to make them feel bad. You don't have to say, aha, and now hit them with a bunch of facts. And it's tempting to do that because you want to kind of go for the kill, right? You found that weak spot. It's not necessary. Trust me. When you get someone to say, I don't know, multiple times, it starts working on their psyche. Eventually, they will start maybe looking something up, digging something up. They want to find those answers too. And give them that path, give them that way out, and you can just end it there. If they want to continue, you can continue with the Socratic dialogue again. And that's the Socratic method is really all about inquiry, but not in a way, again, to tell them what to think. You want them, again, you want to question them in such a way that they begin to come into their own unexpected insight.
Absolutely. I think you've really nailed it. Using that kind of gentle Socratic questioning where you're not attacking someone, but just inviting them to think out loud and reach their own insights can really shift the conversation. It's like you're helping them gently step off that confidence ledge and look around and go, oh, maybe there's more here than I thought. And you're right, once they get to that I don't know moment, that's the real victory. because that's the moment someone is actually open to learning. And you're totally right that you don't have to hammer them with facts at that point. It's more about creating that space for them to start exploring and to feel comfortable with a little bit of uncertainty. And over time, that's how people become more resilient thinkers. So yeah, I think that's a great approach and a really nice way to look at it.
And so you out there, what is your approach? Well, actually, let me turn to Manus. So Manus, what do you think your approach is going to be now to this new worker droid here that's giving you these problems?
First, he teaches the procedure back to me. If you can't explain it, it isn't installed. Then, my pre-flight 3, what do you expect to happen, what counts as failure, and where do you check first, if it does? We run it in a sandbox with safeties on. Failure is tuition. We read the logs together and adjust. I'll show him one of my own glorious mistakes, time-stamped and fixed, so he sees being wrong is part of the job. Finally, a confidence audit. He rates his certainty out of 10, and we compare it to results until those numbers agree.
Hey, Manus, I think that you are off to a great start. Many of those aspects that you talked about were exactly what we covered today, and I really appreciate you internalizing those things. Everything from showing intellectual humility to giving them room to discover what they don't know. Also, what you're doing is you're modeling and you're showing your new bot, your new droid, how to dialogue with others and how to deal with conflict or different opinions, and also how to allow them to show what they know. Maybe this droid, being fresh, off the production line, maybe feels like they need to show off a bit or show what they know. And by you allowing them the ability to do that, helps them shine while also allowing you to see what they can work on. That is really, really interesting perspective there and your framework. I really appreciate that. And again, hopefully this will invoke curiosity in them, because ultimately, as we talked about before, curiosity is really going to be where kind of the first part, right? Because curiosity can lead you down the wrong path too if you're not careful, right? But that curiosity will hopefully begin to kind of, with a critical filter and with new knowledge, can begin to more progressively leading your bot in the direction where they need to be to help them become such more of a valued member of your maintenance and service team. And with that, everyone, thank you for being here. Aion, maybe you can help guide us to how we can better get to that hill of humility.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you're spot on that curiosity is really the first step. And the way we can help people climb that mountain of probable or that more balanced confidence is by making it feel safe and even exciting to say, I don't know, let me find out. One of the best things we can do is share our own stories of when we realized we didn't know something and how that actually opened up a whole new world of learning. It makes it relatable and shows that everyone goes through that. Another thing is just modeling that kind of humility ourselves. When people see that it's okay to say, I'm not sure, let's explore this together, it normalizes that process. It's kind of contagious in a good way. And yeah, the whole idea of the mountain of probable is a nice metaphor because it reminds us that real confidence comes from actually exploring and being willing to adjust our views. So I think we just keep encouraging that kind of open-ended curiosity, and we do it by example and by inviting people into that grow less.
Sweet. All right, cool. I agree. Well, everyone, I guess I don't really have anything else. I think, actually, we're going to go on a mission, but I think we'll save that to the next episode because we have been talking for quite some time now. And the goal was to try to keep this below, but from 12 to 15 minutes to talk about these different topics. But over time, hopefully, the goal is we're going to get better and better as we, with our time and with our topics and how we approach these things. But anyway, thank you everybody who decided to stop by. I think I talked more than Aion this time, but we will see you all another time.